SRIRAM's IAS, serving the nation since 1985. Ab offline ho ya online, we are the lifeline.
Hello students, welcome to SRIRAM's IAS. Welcome to this current affair class. This is class number 26. These kind of classes of current affairs will help you in your upcoming prelims examination. We are also coming up with concept classes. Those are very important for your upcoming examination. So let's see what is there in today's news. So the news pertains to censorship of movies and the kind of violence which is seen in the movies, which can have undesirable effect on the young minds. But at the same time, when you are doing censorship, it is very important to consider the freedom of speech and expression. Now, this thing has been said by a judge of the Kerala High Court when he was listening to the petitions and considering K. Hema committee report on the sexual harassments and inequality, gender inequality in the Malayali film industry. So freedom of speech and expression has been in news from a long time. We have seen recently Imam Pratapgarhi case. Imam Pratapgarhi, one of the member of parliament from Gujarat, Rajya Sabha MP, against whom a FIR was launched just because he has posted a poem on his Instagram post, and that poem was considered to be something which was inciting violence. Supreme Court has beautifully said, after questioning that particular FIR, that criticism is not one of the reasonable restriction on the freedom of speech and expression. If your work, it can be a movie, it can be a poem, any kind of painting or a story, a book, or any post which you are writing on your Instagram post or Twitter or anything, if there is a criticism and there is widespread criticism against your activity, that is not the ground to remove it, to stop it from publication. Why? Because criticism is not the part of reasonable restrictions. There is a list of reasonable restrictions which can be imposed against the freedom of speech and expression, to maintain the sovereignty, unity of the country, to maintain law and order, against obscenity, for morality. Morality is one of the ground, but criticism is not a ground. So that was a very beautiful judgment by Supreme Court. In another case of Kunal Kamra, where satirical comedy against politicians or sort of political comedy is involved, that is a issue which is very vibrant nowadays, because usually the political class does not accept the comedy when it is directed towards them. Criticism in the form of comedy, that becomes a huge issue with them. So this is another issue. While considering the particular case of sexual harassment and gender inequality in the Malayali film industry, the honorable judge has said that there is too much violence which is seen in movies nowadays, and it can have some sort of impact on the young minds. But when you are doing the censorship on these kind of movies against the violence shown, you should also consider the freedom of speech and expression. So there is always a argument, there is a set of argument, we can say, that cinema is the reflection of society. This is one argument, and at the same time it is also said by several people that cinema also leads to changes in the society. Now, if you show violence in cinema, unnecessary sexual images and stories in cinema, that is going to impact the society negatively. But there are people who says, no, that's not the case. The case is something else. The case is that cinema is only reflecting what is happening in the society. So this argument keeps going. There is not an end to this. It's a never ending argument between two different sets of people and two different sets of mentality. So anyway, we have to find a common ground. So while reviewing, it was said So Kerala High Court questioned the extent of state interference in the film content. Now, pre-censorship is allowed, but to what extent you can censor a particular artistic work? Now that has to be seen. That censorship should not in any way infringe upon the fundamental right of freedom of speech and expression. That has to be seen. Along with it, there are also issues of constitutional morality, and this issue is linked with public and constitutional morality. Now, one thing very good about morality is it changes with time and space. What is moral for us may not be moral for some other country or some other society. What is moral for people living in the Western countries may not be moral for us. We have different sets of values. We have different sets of cultures. Our backgrounds are very different. The kind of movies which they are making and the kind of movies which are prevalent in India and are considered good, not obscene or moral movies, maybe that are set of movies which maybe the Americans will not agree with. So there's always a difference of space. At the same time also, what was considered immoral 30 years back is not considered immoral now. Society has opened up. The minds of the people have opened up. So this concept of morality is a changing concept. Now there is something called constitutional morality also. There are values which are enshrined in the constitution. Now they needs to be upheld, such as liberty, such as freedom, liberty of expression, thought, belief, faith, worship. So when you read the preamble and you find out liberty, and when you find out liberty of thought, liberty of expression, liberty of belief. So what is this liberty of thought and liberty of expression? If some director wants to make a movie and a writer writes a movie and he makes the movie and there is violence in that movie or there is unnecessary sexual imagery in that movie, can it be considered as a part of the fundamental right of speech and expression? Does the artistic work require that kind of work? Because it has an impact on the society, especially on the younger minds, adolescent minds who are growing up. They would be learning, they would be making their role models. They may think that that's the way how you succeed in life. Okay, KGF is a movie, Pushpa, those violence is seen in those movies, and people may think that because of violence only you can get success. Gangs of Wasepur is another movie. So all these kind of movie keeps coming. There are positive movies as well, and now we should be, we should have that basic understanding or the foundational level where we should take movies as movies. Okay, but that level to come, and that we are not getting influenced by the movie so much that we take wrong examples from it or we make wrong role models from it. That understanding needs to be evolved, and until it is evolving we have to be very conscious about it. That's the whole point the honorable judge was trying to make, that we have to balance between the fundamental right of freedom of speech and expression on one hand and not showing violence through censorship on the other hand. Now, this is what we have already seen, the argument for regulating violence through censorship. Excessive violence may normalize harmful behavior in society. If too much violence is shown in the movie, then maybe people will start to imitate the same thing in their life. And when they imitate the same thing in their life again and again, it becomes normalized. That behavior is sort of normalized. Like, the use of foul language. Nowadays it is seen in movie and now it is acceptable widely in the society. 30 years back, no movies had that foul language, but nowadays every web series which you see has that foul languages, and it is very acceptable in the society. People sit with their parents and see those web series where the characters are using the foul language. In one way, it is seen as if it is the true reflection of what actually happens in the society. It's a very good argument. But at the same time, it also promotes the foul language in the society. So that circle, those two set of argument which we have seen initially, those are continuing. So we have to strike a balance. Psychological impact, especially on the youth, it's always there. Argument for protecting freedom of expression. Cinema is the mirror of what is happening in the society, mirror of reality, and it includes violence, because violence is seen on the ground. When you read newspaper, you see all kind of violence happening in the society. Most of the movies which are made, many of them are adapted. The director, the producer, the writers, they adapt the story from whatever has happened in the society and fill it with their imagination. Few other kind of stories are totally imaginary stories. So again, we have to strike the balance where we do not, the people who are involved in the artistic work, the directors, the producers, the actors, they should also have a responsibility of not portraying something which is not real or which may have a very deep psychological impact on the minds of people. And at the same time, we should not be so much narrow-minded that if we see a little foul language in the movie or little violence in the movie or sexual imagery in the movie, which is very much prevalent in the society, by the way, that we make an issue out of it. If it's there in the movie, we should not make an issue out of it. So we have to have this understanding and the basic, that then only the artistic element in the society will grow to levels which can be considered as an international level. At one point we have problem that why Indian films are not there in the Oscars, but at the same time we are the one who are pulling the artistic freedom of the film community. So this is something we have to consider. Then there are few legal judgments which we will consider in this particular video, that Supreme Court in one of the cases, K.A. Abbas, has upheld pre-censorship under Article 19 clause number 2. Now that pre-censorship under this particular article has to have its basis on the reasonable restrictions which are provided. Okay, morality has to be there. There shall not be obscenity. The material must not incite violence, not create law and order problem. It must not hurt the sovereignty and integrity of the nation. Those are the reasonable restrictions on which pre-censorships can be done. In another case, Supreme Court emphasized on balancing free speech and public interest. So too much violence in the movie may not be in the public interest, but at the same time cutting down all the images relating with violence in the movie may also hurt the freedom of speech and expression. In another case, Supreme Court protected the documentaries from censorship, because documentaries are more true prediction, or sort of, they are showing the stories in a more true manner. They contain less of imagination and more of truth. Now, why do you want to censor the truth? That's the point. Imagination can be censored, okay, but truth, a documentary on a serial killer will show violence. It will contain violence. It will contain the acts done by the serial killer. But a movie which just imagines a serial killer, there unnecessary violence can be reduced. But at the same time, even when documentaries are made, it must keep in the producers, the directors must keep in mind that unnecessary images which disturbs the mind must not be shown on the TV. In another case, the Bombay High Court criticized the unnecessary censorship. So these kind of issues keep happening in the country related with the balance which has to be created between the artistic work on one hand and the freedom of speech and expression on the other hand. So this is the issue. Thank you very much for joining me. We are going to come up with the next topic in the next lecture. Till that time, bye bye and Jai Hind.